Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video we got another news and review to discuss. In today's video we're looking at some signings from our past couple of days, injury updates, waivers, a suspension, plus we got some trade rumors involving the Flames, Maple Leafs, Colorado Avalanche, and the Philadelphia Flyers. And with all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the NHL Hockey Channel. Now before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for your support. Would never do this without you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment down in the comment section below so it's going to also listen to this video. Now usually I always start off by talking about some signings that have happened over the past little while, but there have been no signings from the past couple of days. So we're going to once again start with a couple of injury updates. So some injury updates from the past couple of days. First, Artem Zub was placed in long-term injury reserve by Ottawa with a broken foot. So he's going to miss probably at least the next couple of weeks, if not maybe longer than that. So bad blow there for the Senators to lose a solid top four right shot defenseman. Vancouver got Brock Besser back in the game action on Tuesday after missing 7 games with a concussion. So really good news there for Besser to get back in the game action, and that's a big boost to Vancouver's top 6. Matthew Knies was participating in practice in a non-contact jersey, but is still out with upper body injury. Probably going to miss a couple more games. Max Domi won't travel with the Leafs and is still out with a lower body injury, so he's probably going to be even longer than Knies. And Jacob Murray will send down to the AHL on a conditioning stint, so he could be near a return not just in future. So some good updates on the Leafs, but still bad to see Domi not travel and Knies in no contact jersey, so that's it there. Kochetkov is day-to-day with a concussion, but could return at some point over the weekend or early next week, so that could be a really good boost there for the Hurricanes. You got Kochetkov back. Cole Sillinger missed Wednesday's game for the Columbus Blue Jackets with upper body injury, so it's a bad blow there. He's day-to-day. Hopefully he should recover and return to not just in future. Jonah Gadrich practiced, but is still day-to-day with upper body injury, so bad blow there for the Panthers. Good to see him practicing, but that's still a Saul Baum 6'4" who's out right now. Mike Matheson missed both Tuesday and Wednesday's games with a lower body injury, so it's bad blow there for the Habs. It doesn't seem like he's going to be out for an overly long period of time, but to see about his bad stuff there, he's a solid top 4 veteran type defenseman there for the Canadians. Anton Lundell missed Wednesday's game due to a facial injury, so hopefully he's not going to be out for a long period of time. It was a late scratch, so hopefully he's back for the next game for Florida. Philip Broberg finally started skating, but is still out with a knee injury, so hopefully he should be nearing a return in the next week or two. That's a bad blow there for the Blues to still have Broberg out. Jonathan Jordan is out week to week with upper body injury after just missing a whole bunch of time. He's going to miss an extended period of time again, so bad stuff there for the Avalanche. Drew Ends out. Tage Thompson was activated off of injury reserve and returned to game action on Wednesday after missing 5 games with a lower body injury, so good to see Thompson back. It's a big boost for the Sabres. He's a big part of that forward group there for Buffalo, so good to see that he was able to get back. Alex Lyon missed Wednesday's game with undisclosed injuries, so a bad blow there for the Red Wings as they lost their backup goaltender, at least for a time being. Well, Patrick Kane missed his 2nd straight game with upper body injury on Wednesday, and hopefully he should recover not just in future, but that's bad blow there for the Red Wings. Chris Kreider and Filipino, who had both missed games. I think Hill's missed like 4 or 5 games now. Kreider, who missed the last one, both missed Wednesday's game with upper body injury. Hopefully those two are back and not just in future, but that's a bad blow there for the Rangers. Alex Romanov returned to game action after missing a game with a nagging injury, so good to see Romanov back after missing a lot of time and then missing another game on top of it, so interesting note there. Blake Lizotte returned to game action on Wednesday after missing some time with an injury, so he's been in and out of the lineup due to injuries all year, so good to see him be back. Mikael Granlund is out day-to-day for the Sharks with upper body injury, so bad news there is the Sharks one of the leaders in their point total, and Granlund is out, so bad stuff there. Pietrangelo returned to game action after missing a few games with upper body injuries, so good to see Vegas get Pietrangelo back and see their top 4 defensemen get back in the game action. Well, William Karlsson missed last game with personal reasons, is back, so good news there for Vegas. Jonas Brodin missed Wednesday's game with upper body injury. Marek Kuznetsov is out with a lower body injury for the Wild, so after returning for 1 game, Brodin's back out, and Kuznetsov is still injured, so bad blows there for the Wild. Robert Bortuzzo left Tuesday's game with a lower body injury, so it's a bad blow there for the Utah franchise to lose a solid 6th, 7th defenseman for a foreseeable future. And Roope Hintz missed Wednesday's game with undisclosed injury, so that's a bad blow there for the Stars as they lose a solid top 6 forward. So those are all injury updates from the past couple of days. So good to see guys like Pietrangelo, Romanov, Thompson, and Besser all get back in the game action, and they didn't look too out of place in their returns. But bad news to see guys like Zub, Kochetkov, Kreider, and Hintz all be out. So bad news there is those guys are all going to be out for the next little while with injuries. So interesting out there. But those are all the injury updates from our past couple of days. We also have had no waiver updates from our past couple of days. We did get 1 suspension over the past couple couple of days, and that was with New Jersey Devils forward Timo Meier. Meier back on Monday for the New Jersey Devils, was playing against Nashville Predators. He, I think, cross-checked Zachary Leroux in the face. It was a bad play there, and it warranted him a 1-game suspension. So I don't think that's anything out of the ordinary. That was a bad play from Meier. So to see him get a 1-game suspension is not overly surprising, and I think it's deserved for what happened there. But still, bad play there from Meier. He was suspended 1 game. I think they already played that 1 game, so he should be eligible for his next game. But still, that's a bad play there from Meier, and it cost him a game. So interesting note there. But that was the only suspension update we have from our past couple of days. And lastly, going over to a couple of trade rumors. Now, I've got a couple of trade rumors here to discuss. We're going to start off the trade rumor portion of this video talking about the Calgary Flames. Now, on a recent radio hit, I think it was with Calgary Flames media, Elliotte Friedman was talking about the Flames and was talking about what they're going to do right now. The Flames had a fantastic start to the season. Contrary to my beliefs, I thought they would have been a team who had a slow start to the year, had a really bad start, but they've been grinding hard. They've been having a really good stretch to open the season. I think they're something like 12-7-3. They're having a pretty good season. They're, I think, second in the Pacific Division, so they're not having a bad year so far. But Elliotte Friedman does think that talent will eventually take over and start winning other teams' games, and the Flames don't have as much talent as other teams do. So he thinks that eventually Calgary might start to tail off a little bit. So it doesn't sound like the Flames are going to be in the rental market, so don't expect Calgary to go after big-time rentals to try and get short-term upgrades. However, Elliotte Friedman does think that if the opportunity presented itself, there's a possibility Flames could go after and try and target a younger player, someone who could be with that team for a little bit of time. So if there's a player there, say maybe a top 6, top 9 forward, or a second, third pair defenseman who's maybe on the younger side of things and has some longer term contract, or maybe is on a short term contract but it's at least cost controlled with that RFA status, then the Flames might be willing to try and acquire him. So don't expect them to go after rentals or older players with short term deals with like 1 to 2 years left on their deals. But if there was a possibility out there, the Flames are still doing good later on into the season, expect them to try and maybe add a younger player, someone who can grow with the team, be a solid top 4 defenseman, top 6 forward, someone who's on the younger side of things that can really help them. Maybe it wouldn't cost them an overabundance of draft picks or prospects. So keep your eye on the Calgary Flames. There's a very likely chance after this hot start that they could try and add something before the trade deadline, but definitely don't expect them to try and add some rentals, because with where they're on the rebuild, they don't want to try and give up assets. So if they can get a younger player that could help them for not only now but in the future too, I think they would be open to doing that. But Elliotte Friedman says don't expect them to go after rentals, because very likely chance they could try and tail off later on in the season. So we're gonna have to wait and see on that. Going over to the Colorado Avalanche. Now when it comes to them, I saw a recent article linking 3 goaltenders to them. Now we know the Avalanche have not had overly great goaltending over the past little while. Georgiev and Union have not had overly great numbers, and Union's definitely been better than Georgiev, but neither goalie has been outstanding. So there's a very likely chance the Avalanche try and pull off a goalie move. Now those 3 players that were linked in that article were Dan Vladar in Calgary, Mackenzie Blackwood in San Jose, and John Gibson in Anaheim. Now Gibson will be a difficult trade to pull off. The Avalanche are right against the cap. Gibson makes $6.4 million. He would be a fantastic starting goaltender for the Avalanche. I think he'd be a really good starter there in Colorado. But I just think that the assets the Ducks would want right now for Gibson, plus Gibson's term left on his contract and his cap hit, would make it pretty difficult for the Avalanche to pull off that sort of a deal. But when it comes to Vladar and to Blackwood, it's a different story. I think Blackwood's in the final year of a 2-year, $1.25 million deal. Vladar's in the final year of a 2-year, $2.1 million deal. So neither have an overly egregiously high cap hit. Both have had pretty good starts to the season. Vladar is putting up some pretty good numbers in Calgary. As we just talked about, the Flames have had a pretty good start to the year. Blackwood's actually been pretty good for San Jose. So trying to acquire those 2, I don't think it'll also take too many assets to pull off a trade. I think a second round pick would probably do it. Maybe a second round pick plus something lower end would make it work for the Sharks or the Flames to pull a trigger on that deal. I think Vladar and Blackwood could definitely be really good tandem partners for Georgiev or maybe Union. I'm not exactly sure, but I could definitely see Blackwood and Vladar be fantastic fits for Colorado. So we're gonna have to wait and see on that. Very likely possibility, I think at least, that the Avalanche should make some sort of a goalie move at some point during the season, because the Avalanche have not had overly great goaltending so far this year. And whether it's trying to acquire a major starter like a Gibson, or is it someone lower on a short-term deal like a Vladar or a Blackwood, I think there's a very likely chance the Avalanche do make some sort of move in the season. So we're gonna have to wait and see on that. Going over to the Philadelphia Flyers, Frank Seravalli recently was talking and linked 4 players as potential trade candidates for Flyers. All 4 are forwards. Some have been in the rumor mill for a little bit, some have not. So the 4 players that he links as potential trade candidates there for Philadelphia Flyers that could be moved, maybe not by a deadline, but at least in the next year or 2, would be, well, Farabee, Morgan Frost, Bobby Brink, and Tyson Foerster. Now, Farabee and Frost we talked about a ton on this channel. I know there's been a ton of rumors around those two. Farabee, I think, has like 4 or 5 years left at a $5.5 million cap hit. He's been a really good player. He's been a former 30 goal scorer. He just hasn't really worked out overly well the last couple of years in Philadelphia. He could definitely use a fresh start. He's been in the rumor mill a while. I know a team like Buffalo has been linked to him, and there were a couple of other teams earlier in the offseason too. So to see him be moved would not be overly surprising, especially if Philadelphia's on the outside looking in on the playoff mark. When it comes to trade deadline time, I think a lot of teams could use a former 30 goal scorer who's on the younger side of things, who could grow with their team and is cost controlled for the next couple of seasons. So I could definitely see Farabee be moved. Frost, same sort of thing. He's a solid second, third line center. Has not worked out overly well in Philadelphia. A lot of people think that he needs a fresh start. I think he's going to be a UFA at the end of the year, so very likely chance he doesn't stay with Philadelphia beyond this year anyway. So very likely chance that the Flyers could try and move on from him. Now, I'm not exactly sure what sort of return they're looking for us as a former first-round pick, but he probably would get like a second-round pick or a third-round pick and a really good prospect, something like that in return. So I think Frost and Farabee are very likely to get dealt. Brink and Foerster, on the other hand, are interesting. Brink's a younger player. I think he's only like 21, 22 years old, but he hasn't worked out overly well in Philadelphia. Has never really found his role. I could see them try and give him a fresh start if they're able to get a decent enough return, but he's on the younger side of things, so I'm not exactly sure if Philadelphia really wants to move on from him. Same thing with Foerster. Foerster's actually been a really good top-nine forward over the past couple of years, plays Philadelphia-style hockey, so he's also on the younger side of things. He's like 23-ish or somewhere around there. So he's not an overly bad player for Philadelphia, and I don't think they would want to move on from him, but I think he's also on a shorter-term deal. So I could see him try and move on from him too. So I think Foerster's definitely less likely, and Brink maybe, maybe not, but I think Frost and Farabee are definitely going to get moved at some point for Philadelphia. So keep your eye on those four guys. Apparently Frank Seravalli thinks there's a very likely chance those four guys will get moved in the not too distant future. I think Frost and Farabee are for sure going to get moved. I'm not sure about Brink, and I think Foerster's a little bit less likely, so you're going to have to wait and see on that. And lastly, going over to a recent report we saw about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I never got around to talking about this, but Kyle McLean, who's a former NHL GM, was on the Kreider and Brink podcast on Sportsnet, and he was talking about a couple of weeks ago how the Leafs should try and target Nazem Kadri as a major upgrade. Now, we know that the Leafs have been looking for a second-line center or a third-line center. We know that down the middle they've not been the deepest of teams this year, and they could be really benefiting from adding a second-line center. I know I've heard some people say Nelson could be a very good option there for Toronto. I know that there's been a couple of other options, but Kadri's an interesting one. Kyle McLean's reasoning for us is they have to go up against a lot of really tough teams, and teams like Florida, New Jersey, New York Rangers, who are going to be very tough and physical in the playoffs. So if they're going to go up against those sorts of teams in the playoffs, you need a sort of forward who can mix it up like that, and Kadri does bring that. Now, Kadri was a long-time Leaf before he got dealt to Colorado and then signed with Calgary in the free agent market a couple of years ago. So I'm not sure if Kadri has any protection on his deal, but if he does, would he block a trade from Toronto? Would Kadri welcome a trade going back to Toronto? Would the Leafs want Kadri back? It'll be interesting to see. I'm not exactly sure if the Leafs would be beneficial from adding this, but Kadri could be a really solid second-line center. It would also be a difficult move cap-wise because Kadri, I think, still has 4 or 5 years left on a $7 million AAV deal. And on top of that, we've heard them mention Kadri as potentially being available, but I'm not exactly sure what a return would look like for the Calgary Flames, so we're going to have to wait and see on that. But Kyle McLean, who's a former GM, thinks that the Leafs should really go after Kadri, have him be their new second-line center, and have them add another physical type forward like Kadri to try and add some more physicality to that team going into the playoffs. So we're gonna have to wait and see on that. We'll have to see if anything of this sort of thing comes to fruition. But apparently, according to Kyle McLean, Nazem Kadri could be a really good fit there for Toronto and be the new 2C. So we're gonna have to wait and see on that. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all this. It makes some sense to me. It also does make sense as well. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk about for today. Could Kadri be a really good fit in Toronto? And if so, could they try and acquire him? Do you think that the Flames could try and make some moves, maybe add a younger player? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Did the Flyers move 4 of their forwards? And if so, could Frost, Farabee, Foerster, or Brink be moved? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Plus, do you think the Avalanche could try and acquire a goaltender? And if so, could it be Vladar, Blackwood, Gibson? I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Plus the suspension and the injury updates from the past couple of days. Definitely love to hear your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. So I'm going to talk about for today. Until the latest video, if you like to subscribe below. Thank you for all your support. We're now to love you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below. So you can also listen to this video. Also a blog, to my news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. The link's down in the description below. And can I see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.